Hello, Internet. Welcome to another edition of Eric's Corner with the word of the not-so-wise. As you can see, I'm doing something different. I got my camera angled in a vertical position, and I have, that's right, car parts sitting in front of me. So you know it's going to be one of those episodes. I am going to try really hard to stay to the point. This video is going to be a little bit clumsy because I got to run back and forth to give you some up-close pictures of what I got going on here. So without further ado, last weekend, I did what's called an EGR and DPF delete on a 2008 Duramax. I happened to run into a guy, and I was talking to him about these, and he did one on his, at the time, father-in-law's roughly same year Duramax, and he said he charged him $3,500, and I thought that was absolutely outrageous. Well, did one myself, and I, quite frankly, there's no way I'm doing one for less than $3,000 in the future. I did this with my buddy. You know, he wanted to just flip me $500, which I felt was fair. Okay, cool. But after talking to the other dude, I was like, there's no way I'm going to get motivated to do this project with for that small amount. So he paid me $1,500, and he helped me. It took 12 and a half hours. We started at 8 o'clock in the morning. We didn't get done till past 10 o'clock at night. So minus an hour and a half for some lunch breaks and some breaks. And I kept really close to track of the time, so I wondered how long it would take. Went way faster with somebody handing me tools. These types of projects really piss me off because there's absolutely no reason to have all this shit on a vehicle. I'm going to refer you out to some other YouTube videos for some further explanation on stuff. This is not a how-to video. There's people who've done this 50 times and can tell you way better than I can. It did turn out really good. We didn't have any problems. So I've talked about these emission things on the show before, and now I have a little bit of a visual. I can drive my point home a little bit further. I know what you're thinking. Well, Eric, you always talk about doing projects like this. I was like, well, I mean, I've only done this a couple of these. I did my 6.4 Power Stroke, my F450. It took me around 6 hours. And I was doing it by myself. I had a buddy help me, my buddy that I fish with. But I mean, he only helped me a couple times. He was busy doing other things. This little guy right here took 6 hours to get off and put on. And that was after we removed what's called an EGR cooler, and that's heavy. That's about 20 pounds. That was after we removed most of the stuff because we were already, 7 o'clock at night when I realized that had to come off as well and how difficult it looked. And there's a how-to video. A guy's got a real good one on that. But that's got to come off because there's just O-rings on here, and this just fits in here. It just presses in with rubber O-rings, and there's boosts being forced in here, so these come loose and so forth. That's a garbage part. There's a throttle body in there, what's called a throttle body. And this, again, like I said, this video is going to be a little bit clunky. I don't know how well you can see in there. There we go. You see all this mess and nonsense right here? That's carbon. That is unburnt diesel fuel that you are sucking back into your engine. Now my hand's dirty. So it makes a real mess, and all these parts look like that. So basically they think taking exhaust and pulling it out of your exhaust system and pulling some of it back into the engine to re-burn it was a good idea. I don't know who came up with this, but you're taking dirty, expended gases and you're putting them back into a cylinder or into an engine with the clean, combustible, fresh oxygen and fresh fuel to then have that not fully combust because you're ramming, not CO2, oh, God damn it. Yeah, I mean, it's CO2, but it's carbon monoxide. You're taking recirculating back into the engine. So then it comes to this guy right here. This is your diesel particulate filter, which took me about 2 hours to get off alone. It's heavy. This is a filter, and is what they do. It goes through this, and it catches the exhaust and filters it. I mean, okay, fine, but they have to do what's called regen, is what the 6.4 Power Stroke does, and they all do something similar. I didn't really look into the minutiae of what they do individually. look it up. Again, this isn't a how-to video. I'm trying to stay on topic, and you know, if you're any fan of my videos, you will see I have a very hard time doing so. What the 6.4 does is on the exhaust stroke of the engine, it injects fresh fuel into cylinder number 7 and 8 and dumps raw fuel into your exhaust to go through this and then dump it out the tailpipe. Does that make sense to you? And I'm not the only one who's put videos out about this. You can find scores of videos of real mechanics, and I'd be happy to have a local career diesel mechanic on my show and get their opinion. So this isn't my opinion. This is just ironclad fact. So you're taking and just dumping it onto the ground. So this is a big dog and pony show. You take this bullshit off, it will then blow black smoke. I mean, well, you can adjust your tuner to do such things. And I'm going to take and cut this in half just for the hell of it. So all this nonsense, it's heavy. This stuff goes bad and you have to replace it and it's expensive. Or you can just take it off. I think he's got about $3,000 in parts, and your tuner, your programmer alone is like $800-900, and you have to sign paperwork saying that it's for off-road vehicles alone. Ford started with this on the 6-liter Power Stroke. They, I think 2004, I think 03 was the split year. They put this mess on, and they were like a couple of years ahead of schedule with this, because Cummins didn't have this on until the 6.7, what it came out with in 2008, and then Duramax, they put theirs on somewhere in between. And all these things have been just a complete disaster. They would have been far better off leaving all this crap off and just paying the fines. It cost the big three billions in recalls, because, okay, we're not having problems with this stuff 150,000, 200,000 miles, 15, 20 years later. We were having problems with this shit right out of the box. The 6 liters were blowing up with 40, 50,000 miles on it because of this bullshit that they put on there. They should have just paid the fines. Now, I know you're calling me Captain Hindsight, but again, we were having these problems right away. Ford had a couple of years to perfect this issue. I mean, and I've mentioned before, the resources it takes to swap an engine, to build you a brand new engine, to have your guys down at the shop replace it, the fuel I have to burn to drive to work to make the money to replace that engine. Does this make sense to you? Are things adding up? I'm not making this up. This is how these things are. So Cummins recently got a 1.789, 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, C, D, F, G, whatever the fuck, $1 billion fine, $1.7 billion fine, because in the computer system, they bypassed this shit, which I was pretty impressed with Cummins, because I was like, well, they're just simply not having these problems, and the Cummins is still lasting way better than the other 2 engines. I'm sorry, 3 engines, the 6 liter, the 6.4, and then the 6.6 Duramax. It's outlasting all of them. Well, they bypassed it, which I think is fantastic, because it's just all it's doing is blowing up engines, and you can't take this shit off right from the factory because it'll void your warranty. I am going to petition the Alaska governor to say that we can pull this shit off. It is federal law. Well, federal law can fucking suck it, because weed is also federally illegal, and guess what? We sell it in fucking stores here because, of course, the lobbyists and the politicians, of course, get tax revenue that they can now embezzle and stuff their pockets with, like they all do. This is, well, having this shit on there is making them money, because we have to buy an abundance of more parts. It makes our vehicles less reliable. They'd have been a million times better off building us a truck that consistently goes 300, 400,000 miles. 10,000 miles a year is about vehicle average. And the truck will rust away to nothing. There's no reason to build an engine that lasts 1 million miles, because these things just simply aren't going to last 100 years. They rust away. Yes, they exist. Oh, but Eric, I've seen a Duramax with 1 million miles on it. Yeah, well, I've also seen the motherfuckers with 90,000 miles on them blow up also. So what is your point? The average lifespan of an engine is only about 250,000 miles. So, yeah, I mean, I think we need to be able to take this crap off right from the factory, and the factory should pay for it. There's also a FAS fuel filter, which is a 2-micron filter. I'd highly recommend one of those, and a 1-micron oil filter bypass setup that I would highly, highly recommend you put on this stuff. I'm pretty sure you can throw those on right brand new, and I know the fuel filter doesn't void your warranty because it is below factory specs at 2-micron versus probably 10, I'm guessing, which is a horribly big filter. So yeah, I mean, this stuff is just such freaking garbage. And I hate doing projects like this because I never should have had to do it in the first place, is the first reason. Second of all, it's a pain in the ass. You got to pull a fender well out, the plastic fender well. You got to get behind the engine, which wasn't horrible. I mean, it kind of sucked. And again, that's why the Duramax takes such a long time versus the Ford. All this shit was on the side. And I just had to pull off, yeah, it was just far simpler. Again, if you're interested, look it up. I'm not going to try and get into the minutia of all that because this video is already going to be way too long. So this is an EGR cooler because I know I was just telling you, I'm not telling you how these things work, but I need to make a point on this one. So this is an EGR cooler, exhaust gas recirculator cooler, because exhaust gas is 1200 goddamn degrees, and you're taking that and you're sucking it inside of an engine. Now you have on a truck what's called an intercooler. Turbo pulls air through your filter, blasts it through this intercooler. Turbocharger gets hot because it runs off of the exhaust igniting and coming out of the engine. So then you're sucking that back up and putting it in the truck. So air molecules, the colder the molecules are denser, you get more oxygen in the engine. Very basic grade school science there, correct? So then this thing weighs over 20 pounds. I mean, and all this shit's just in the way when you have to fix other shit too. Hunter, my buddy I was doing this for, was like, yeah, Jesus, there's a lot of shit here. I'm like, yeah, imagine having to pull the heads off this for a head gasket and then have to put all this bullshit back together. It's fucking expensive. God damn. I mean, you should be able to do the heads on a truck for, a couple $1,000s. It's an extra $1,000. I'm spitballing here. Easily an extra $1,000 in labor to have your mechanic pull all this bullshit off to fix other things. I mean, this is just, the taxpayers are just getting fucked at the drive-through here, man. I mean, we should be able to pull this shit off right from the factory. In Canada didn't even, this stuff wasn't required till 2018 roughly, quite a few years later. It might have been sooner than that. And you can get a truck from Canada that doesn't have this shit, but got to pay customs and import tax and all that shit, which is fine. But why is the American consumer having to foot the bill for this shit? We don't have a low carbon footprint. We have an exported carbon footprint because building this shit in China, in the places that manufacturing, which is the #1 producer of carbon, it's like 50% of carbon. So you're creating more carbon reproducing this shit to repair it and build new shit or replace parts than you are ever saving with filtering it and then dumping it out the tailpipe anyway. This shit you can probably tell this shit drives me fucking crazy. If I'm wrong, for the love of God, explain to me what I'm missing here. Because I didn't just find out about this yesterday. I have been working on this bullshit since high school. I mean, not very much. I mean, like oil changes and brakes and basics. I mean, I didn't really, start really tearing into, obviously it was brand new shit. People ain't bringing it to a high school student. They're taking it to a dealer, an actual guy. But I mean, I've known about this for a while. I graduated in 2005. That's when, right around this shit started coming out. And it's fucking garbage, and they still got it on their trucks. The, what is it? It's a 6.7 liter. The Power Stroke that Ford built, I hear is absolutely fantastic. Really much more reliable, did a far better job than International. And actually, Ford sued International over high cost of warrantying their engines because they were blowing up so bad. I mean, they're 100,000 mile engines. There's no excuse for a diesel engine not to go 300,000 miles consistently. I mean, of course, if you abuse it or really run it hard, I mean, of course, it's not going to last as long, that's just how that goes. But most people just daily drive these big diesel trucks. 90% of people that have one of these trucks could do everything they needed to do with a half ton. You don't need this big fancy truck to drive every day, put 10,000 miles a year on to tow your fifth wheel twice a year. But spend your money how you want. I do not give a shit. I'm not telling you what to or not to do with your money. I mean, great. I mean, I love those big diesel trucks too. They're fancy. They're powerful. They're the new muscle. But the justification of what they cost to run simply is not there. I promise you. I pull my dad's skid steer with my half-ton Tundra out there. It's got the small engine. I can do 60 up Baycrest. The speed limit's 45. That's just a 310 horse engine. That's a 10,000 pound load. It pulls it just fine. Trailer brakes don't even work on it. I can run it down the hill perfectly fine. I mean, if emergency stop, I'd have a real problem. But, so Yeah, I'm going to talk, well, try somehow or another, get a hold of the governor and say, hey, we got to get rid of this shit. It's costing the consumer billions of dollars. And just the time and the frustration, it's just, it is not saving anything. And now with this big EV hype, okay, since we're just going all electric, stop putting this shit on these trucks. We got to take them off anyway. It's just a big dog and pony show, and it's stupid. There's absolutely no excuse absolutely no freaking excuse for this. And like I said, all this shit building up. I mean, that's not grainy, it's not sandy, but it's still going in the engine, gumming shit up. I mean, that's going through your valves, and your valves gum up. Now you have to put fuel additives in to clean it up. It's just, this was the most circular logical thing I can just possibly imagine. I mean, the people at the EPA just say, oh, well, clean up the exhaust. We don't care how you do it. And Volkswagen got in big trouble because they rigged the the test somehow, had their computer adjust because they knew they were going to be testing it, probably on a dyno where you put the wheels on and just spin the tires, I'm guessing. But they rigged it to burn a certain way at 55 or wherever they did the test, and it turned out they polluted just worse than just about anything. Which again, I don't give a shit. And look up the real Brian Mello. He's got a great channel. I've talked about him before. He explains what's going on with Cummins and some of this stuff. And Cummins basically just said, okay, fine, we'll pay the fine. I mean, it was cheaper than, and they're supposed to recall 80% of them and fix them. If you got a Cummins and they recall it to fix this, don't do it. Absolutely do not do it unless you got a really good reason. Unless you have emission standards at your local, in your city, and you have to do it to pass emissions or something. But even then, register your truck at your buddy's house out of town or something. Do it. Cheat the system. Fuck it. You know, as far as the EPA, you can just, you know, come after me all you fucking want. You can't get blood from a rock, dude. And I'm pretty sure I didn't even do anything illegal here because, I mean, it's personal property, and I'm not an actual mechanic shop, because mechanic shops won't do this. So if you're going to do this for somebody, you're going to have to charge out the ass. I mean, I would do the 6.4 for $1,500, no problem. But one of these Duramaxes, I would not do this again for less than $3,500. It was just a frustrating pain in the ass, cussing, throwing tools, and it sucked because after 10 hours of this, I was ready to just call it quits and take a break, but I couldn't do that. My buddy had to have his truck for work the next week. I mean, didn't have to have. We could have figured something out, of course, but really wanted to get him back on the road. Wanted to start Saturday because I, didn't work Sunday, obviously, but ended up not being able to get to it till Sunday morning. That's why we started so early. So anyway, I've talked for way too long. Again, look into how these work. Please, for the love of God, if somebody's got a reason that this makes sense to you, again, just sucking exhaust back into your engine, which damages things. The regen mode that destroys your engine. Oh, the 6.4. Oh, God damn it, I forgot. So the 6.4, the regen mode where I was talking about, it dumps raw fuel in the exhaust stroke into cylinder number 7 and 8. Well, eventually that cracks your pistons. I think it created like a temperature imbalance in the piston. So, of course, metal expands and contracts, and dumping cold fuel in there repeatedly cool those cylinders down or something. I don't really understand it. I didn't look that much into it. Again, this isn't a how-to video, but regardless, it destroys your fucking engine. How is destroying an engine in the name of burning cleaner make any sense? I assume Cummins and Duramax, I mean, they should have just dumped the shit right into the exhaust pipe or something, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what exactly Cummins and Duramax do, but it's going to be something similar. And this shit's even required on semis and shit now, too. They went to the diesel exhaust fluid, so now you have an extra fluid you have to dump in your vehicle to clean up the exhaust. So let's dump chemicals into the atmosphere to prevent pollution. Does that make sense to you? I mean, if it does, I don't know. Maybe I'm just dumb. I don't know. I mean, it's entirely possible. Maybe I'm completely wrong here, but it's pretty unlikely. So, yeah, that's it for today. Tangent over for now. Thank you for joining me. And like I said, I think I might see if I can get a career diesel mechanic on here to discuss this. And I'm gonna petition the Alaska governor to make it where we can pull this shit off right from the factory. Go buy a brand new truck, say, hey, pull that shit off, and the dealer can pull it off. I mean, it's going to maybe, hopefully say, hey, I'll buy the parts, but your mechanic is doing it at cost or whatever. But I mean, even if it costs you $5 or $6 grand, it doesn't void your warranty. I mean, if you own the truck for 15 years, who gives a flying fuck about $5 grand? Because it will save you, even if things break under warranty, saves you the time and hassle of having to go to the dealership. So we're going to see what happens here. Don't, cross your fingers. By the time I die, maybe something will happen here, but doesn't matter. Sounds like things are heating up in the Middle East as usual. So we're not going to be around for long anyway, probably. So anyway, thank you for joining me. Rant over. I'll see you next time. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.